Imagine for a moment that the world around you is a mirror, reflecting everything you bring into it. Every smile, every act of love, every ounce of your energy, it matters. And yet some people walk through your life as if blind, missing the brilliance you bring. But here's the truth. Their blindness is not your loss. It is their awakening that is delayed. Distance has a purpose. It's not punishment. It's not rejection. It is a sacred space for reflection. When someone who avoids emotional depth is suddenly faced with your absence, suddenly they are confronted with a truth they may have ignored. Your value cannot be contained. It cannot be taken for granted. And that realization, my friend, is not just theirs. It's a divine reminder for you that your worth is undeniable. You see, the most powerful people don't chase recognition. They embody it. They live in such alignment with their own value that absence doesn't weaken them. It amplifies them. And when you honor yourself with that same intensity, something magical happens. The avoidant begins to awaken, not because you demand it, not because you plead, but because your life demonstrates a standard they cannot ignore. Let me tell you something. Distance is not emptiness. It is a testing ground. It separates the timid from the courageous, the superficial from the authentic. And when you hold your ground, when you refuse to shrink, when you refuse to compromise your worth for temporary comfort, you become a living testament of love and strength. That presence, that energy, becomes irresistible. And here's the key. Never mistake their delay for your deficiency. Your value is sacred. Your power is inherent. Their awakening is not your burden. It is their opportunity to rise. Step into that knowledge. Step into that freedom. Step into the life where your value is so radiant, so undeniable, that even absence becomes a teacher of your greatness. When distance wakes them, it will not be because you forced it. It will be because you lived it. And in that living, you honor the highest law of all, that your love, your worth, your purpose is unshakable. Stand tall, shine bright. Let the universe witness the unstoppable force that is you, because when you fully claim yourself, when you honor your light, the world, including the avoidant, will have no choice but to see it. Distance is often misunderstood. People think it means separation is failure, that stepping back signals rejection, or that creating space is a sign of weakness. But in truth, distance is one of the most profound tools for clarity and growth. When someone emotionally avoids connection, their perception becomes clouded. They focus on the immediate, the convenient, the surface-level interactions, and in doing so, they miss the depth, the light, the value that you consistently bring into their life. And when you allow distance to enter, not as a punishment, but as an intentional act of self-respect and presence, a subtle and powerful shift begins to occur. Distance creates perspective because it removes distraction. When someone is always in your presence, when your value is always readily available, it risks becoming invisible. We often undervalue what is constant, what is immediately accessible, and human nature, especially in avoidant individuals, tends to overlook the steady sources of love, care, and integrity that are present in front of them. When you pull back, when you no longer allow your energy to be consumed without reciprocity, it forces the mind and heart to take stock. Absence is not emptiness, it is a mirror. It reflects back to the avoidant the reality of what they have been ignoring. This perspective shift does not happen through argument, persuasion, or insistence. It happens quietly, subtly, as a natural consequence of space. The avoidant individual begins to notice the patterns they had ignored, the warmth of your presence, the thoughtfulness of your actions, the consistency of your integrity. Suddenly, what once seemed ordinary now stands out as extraordinary. Distance allows them to see you not through the lens of habit or expectation, but through the lens of recognition, of appreciation. Distance also allows the avoidant to confront their own patterns. Often, avoidance is a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from vulnerability. They pull back, detach, or create walls, not because they lack feelings, but because the intensity of connection triggers fear. When you create space, you are not abandoning them. You are allowing them the opportunity to observe, reflect, and feel the consequences of their avoidance. Without distance, they may never notice the depth of your worth, because the constant proximity can mask the very truths that are vital for awakening. Moreover, distance empowers you. It is in the act of stepping back that you reclaim your own energy, that you honor your boundaries, and that you communicate your value without words. The avoidant begins to See what it feels like when your life is not fully available to be taken for granted. This absence is a powerful teacher. It shows them that your presence is not a commodity, but a gift, a treasure that requires recognition and respect. And here's the profound wisdom embedded in distance. It transforms perception into clarity. When someone experiences the subtle void created by your absence, it forces an internal reckoning. They are confronted with the question, what is this person's role in my life? What is their impact? And most importantly, how have I taken them for granted? Distance does not manipulate, it illuminates. It allows the avoidant to awaken, not because of pressure, but because the space creates the conditions for realization. Distance is not about withdrawal from love. It is about elevation. Elevation of understanding. Elevation of awareness. Elevation of appreciation. It is the stage upon which recognition unfolds naturally, where avoidance meets reflection, and where absence gives birth to insight. Self-worth is not something that can be given, borrowed, or earned through external validation. It is not defined by the recognition of others, nor is it contingent on someone else's ability to see, understand, or appreciate your value. True self-worth is an internal compass, a divine understanding that your existence, your presence, your energy, and your love are inherently significant. When someone is avoidant, they often struggle to recognize their own feelings or the value of what is right in front of them. They may unintentionally diminish the importance of others, not out of malice, but out of fear, habit, or an inability to sit with vulnerability. And in those moments, your unwavering sense of self-worth becomes not only a shield but a beacon. When you fully embrace your self-worth, it communicates a powerful message without a single word. You no longer bend to prove your value, no longer chase validation, and no longer diminish your brilliance to make others comfortable. You stand in your truth. This truth is magnetic. It does not force recognition. It invites it. The avoidant begins to see the undeniable light you carry, not because you demanded it, but because it radiates naturally from the confidence and self-respect that cannot be ignored. Self-worth is unshakable precisely because it is rooted in understanding who you are and what you bring to the world. It is a recognition that your presence matters, your love matters, your contributions matter, and your boundaries matter. When distance enters, it is often tempting to doubt your significance or question whether your absence will matter. But the reality is that true self-worth does not fluctuate based on the attention or acknowledgement of others. It is anchored in the certainty that your existence has value simply because it is. This unshakable self-worth transforms every interaction with an avoidant individual. It removes the desperation and insecurity that can unknowingly trigger withdrawal. When you approach life from a place of inherent value, your energy becomes calm, centered, and compelling. The avoidant begins to sense that you are not dependent on their recognition to feel complete. This realization is profound. It flips the dynamic. Instead of you seeking acknowledgement, they are invited to confront the truth of your value on their own terms. They begin to notice not what you give for their approval, but the fullness of what you offer simply by being yourself. Self-worth is also an act of freedom. It liberates you from the trap of trying to manipulate someone's feelings or responses. You no longer attempt to fill the gaps of their avoidance. Instead, you honor your own standards, live according to your principles, and let your presence speak for itself. This clarity is disarming for the avoidant because it challenges their patterns without confrontation. They are faced with the undeniable reality that you are complete, whole, and vibrant with or without their acknowledgement. And that realization often sparks introspection, the kind that awakens understanding and appreciation. The power of self-worth lies in its constancy. It does not rise and fall based on moods, reactions, or circumstances. It is a steady, radiant truth that commands respect, inspires admiration, and fosters genuine connection. When distance is introduced, it becomes even more evident. Your absence cannot diminish your value. It only magnifies the importance of what you carry. The avoidant may feel the gap, sense the void, and be drawn to reflect on the depth of your presence. In essence, self-worth is a declaration to the universe and to every person you encounter. I am whole, I am significant, I am enough, and my value is unmistakable. No distance, no avoidance, no fleeting acknowledgement can ever alter that reality. When you live with this certainty, you no longer just exist, you radiate. You no longer wait for validation, you command awareness. And in that radiance, the avoidant is awakened not by force, but by the undeniable truth of your extraordinary presence. Absence is often misunderstood as loss, as punishment, or as disconnection. Yet absence holds a profound, almost sacred power. It creates a space in which reflection becomes inevitable. When someone emotionally avoids intimacy or depth, their focus is usually outward, distracted, or defensive. They may fail to notice the ways in which your presence nourishes, supports, or uplifts them. They may take your patience, kindness, and consistency for granted, but absence has a way of illuminating what presence alone cannot. When you step back, when you allow the natural rhythm of space to enter the relationship, it becomes a mirror for the avoidant to see what has been quietly, consistently, and profoundly present all along. Reflection is triggered not by coercion, argument, or insistence. It is triggered by contrast. Presence is familiar. It can become invisible when it is always accessible. Absence, on the other hand, creates a vacuum that draws attention to what was once overlooked. The avoidant begins to sense the gaps, the subtle ways in which your energy, care, and love shaped their life. They feel the quiet impact of your consistency, the unspoken support that they may have once ignored or underestimated. This reflection is often uncomfortable because it confronts them with their own patterns of avoidance, detachment, or undervaluation. And yet discomfort is a necessary catalyst for awakening. Absence also invites self-awareness. When someone steps back intentionally or naturally, the avoidant is given the space to ask themselves questions they may have avoided. How did I take this person for granted? How did I fail to appreciate their contributions? How did I allow fear or habit to blind me to their worth? These questions cannot arise in the midst of constant access because there is no contrast, no distance to illuminate the truth. Reflection requires pause, and absence provides it in abundance. The beauty of this process is that it does not manipulate or control. Absence is not punishment. It is an offering. It is an opportunity, for the avoidant to confront their avoidance, to witness your value without interference, and to process the impact of their choices. When you withdraw from overextending, over-explaining, or over-accommodating, you are not leaving them. You are creating a natural consequence that aligns with the principle of cause and effect. They experience the reality of your absence, and in that experience, the truth of your presence is revealed. Absence also strengthens your own power and clarity. When you embrace space, you reinforce boundaries, honor your energy, and demonstrate self-respect. This clarity communicates a simple but undeniable truth. Your worth is not dependent on being constantly validated, and your love is not conditional on their recognition. In this way, absence becomes both a mirror and a magnet. It reflects back to the avoidant their patterns, while naturally drawing them toward the value they have overlooked. The awakening that absence sparks is not always immediate. It is often subtle, a quiet shift that grows over time. The avoidant may begin to notice what they miss, feel the void, or recognize the energy they once took for granted. They begin to see your presence not as a given, but as a treasure, something that matters deeply and profoundly. This reflection is the seed of change, the beginning of awareness, and often the precursor to genuine connection if they are willing to rise to meet it. Ultimately, absence is not abandonment. It is illumination. It creates space for reflection, invites self-awareness, and honors the natural flow of recognition and awakening. It allows the avoidant to see your value in a way that constant presence cannot, transforming distance into insight and inaction into understanding. When absence is embraced with intention, love, and self-respect, it becomes a powerful force for growth, clarity, and authentic recognition. Love is not a commodity to be pursued, bargained for, or manipulated. It is a living, breathing energy that thrives when it is freely given and fully experienced, not when it is coerced or demanded. When someone is avoidant, they often retreat in the face of intensity or vulnerability. They may misinterpret closeness as pressure or interpret consistency as obligation. And yet the paradox of human connection is that the more you chase, the more resistance you often create. True love is not built on pursuit. It is built on presence, authenticity, and the quiet power of being fully yourself. When love is chased, it loses its natural resonance. The avoidant feels the weight of expectation and the pressure to perform, to respond, or to validate, and this triggers their instinct to withdraw further. Chasing love becomes a treadmill of frustration, anxiety, and diminishing returns. It erodes the very value that initially drew them toward you. But when love is felt, when it is expressed with integrity, consistency, and freedom, it becomes magnetic. It touches the heart not through demand, but through the undeniable force of authenticity. Feeling love is an active state of being, not a strategy. It is rooted in your connection to yourself first, your self-respect, your boundaries, and your recognition of your own worth. When you operate from this place, your love is a demonstration of strength, not neediness, of generosity, not desperation. The avoidant begins to experience the true essence of your presence, that it is powerful, steady, and unshakable. This creates a space in which they can engage with love in its purest form, without fear, without expectation, without the pressure to perform. Love that is felt, not chased, honors the natural rhythms of connection. It allows the avoidant to arrive at awareness on their own terms. When someone senses that your love is not contingent on their immediate recognition, they are freed from the unconscious pressure to withdraw. Your energy becomes a mirror of calm, clarity, and certainty. It communicates without words that your love is whole and complete, independent of their response. This allows the avoidant to reflect on the value of your presence without fear or resistance. And in that reflection, awareness is awakened. Chasing love also diminishes the sacredness of your energy. It teaches others, consciously or unconsciously, that your attention is negotiable, that your boundaries can be bent, and that your value can be compromised. But when love is expressed authentically, it maintains its power. It demonstrates that your heart is generous, your presence is steady, and your worth is undeniable. This is the energy that transforms avoidance into recognition, resistance into reflection, and absence into longing. Feeling love requires patience and faith. It is not about controlling outcomes, convincing someone, or forcing acknowledgement. It is about living fully in your truth, offering your presence without compromise, and trusting that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, will reflect the value you radiate. The avoidant may initially resist, retreat, or appear indifferent, but love expressed from authenticity cannot be ignored indefinitely. It works quietly, persistently, and powerfully to illuminate what is real, valuable, and sacred in connection. Ultimately, love must be felt, not chased, because the essence of human connection is recognition, not demand. When you embody your love fully, you demons trait the highest form of respect for yourself and for the other person. The avoidant begins to awaken not because you pushed, pursued, or pressured them, but because the energy you radiate is undeniable, magnetic, and transformative. Love expressed in this way becomes a teacher, a mirror, and a force of awakening. It allows absence to become reflection, distance to become clarity, and recognition to emerge naturally, without force. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls, barriers, or a form of rejection, but in truth, boundaries are the foundation of presence, power, and authenticity. They are the framework through which your energy, time, and love are preserved, amplified, and respected. When someone is avoidant, boundaries are not only necessary, they are transformative. They communicate without words that your life has structure, that your worth is non-negotiable, and that your presence is not disposable. Boundaries are not a threat. They are a declaration of integrity and self-respect, and they carry a magnetic force that draws recognition and awareness from those who would otherwise take your value for granted. When you establish clear boundaries, you are essentially teaching others how to treat you. Avoidant individuals often pull away because they sense instability, uncertainty, or a lack of clarity in emotional dynamics. They thrive in ambiguity, where they can maintain control by withholding closeness. But when you demonstrate self-respect through consistent boundaries, you remove the ambiguity. Your energy becomes stable, your expectations transparent, and your value undeniable. This is when the avoidant begins to notice what has always been present, but was previously underappreciated. Boundaries illuminate the space between dependence and independence, between neediness and strength, and they show the other person that your presence is sacred and worthy of acknowledgement. Boundaries also serve as a mirror. They reflect not only your standards but the reality of the connection. When someone encounters the firmness of your limits, they are confronted with a choice: rise to meet the level of respect you demand or step aside. This reflection can be uncomfortable for the avoidant because it challenges their habitual patterns of emotional withdrawal. Yet discomfort is often the spark of awareness. When your boundaries are clear, they are forced to see the consequences of their actions or inaction without you having to argue, plead, or manipulate. The very act of holding your space becomes a powerful teacher. Furthermore, boundaries strengthen your presence because they demonstrate consistency. People, especially avoidants, are deeply attuned to energy. When you shift, compromise excessively, or blur the lines of your own standards, your energy becomes inconsistent and loses potency. But when you honor your boundaries, you communicate a steady, unwavering sense of self. Your presence becomes a force that is not dependent on anyone else's recognition. You no longer need to push, chase, or convince. The clarity of your energy speaks louder than words ever could. Boundaries also cultivate freedom. They free you from overextending your emotional labor, from seeking validation where it will not be given, and from compromising your values to maintain connection. In doing so, you become more vibrant, more alive, and more magnetic. The avoidant, encountering your freedom, begins to sense the depth of what they have been missing. They see a person who is whole, independent, and unshakable, a presence that commands respect and ease. Oak's reflection. Boundaries are not rigid cages, they are the architecture of empowered connection. They allow love to flow, intimacy to deepen, and respect to flourish. They are the unseen force that transforms distance into awareness, absence into recognition, and avoidance into awakening. When you maintain your boundaries with courage, integrity, and love, you are no longer merely participating in the dynamics of others. You are actively shaping the quality of connection, the depth of awareness, and the recognition of your value. Ultimately, boundaries strengthen presence because they are the embodiment of self-worth in action. They signal to the avoidant and to the world that you are not negotiable, not expendable, and not to be taken for granted. Your energy becomes a lighthouse, unwavering and bright, guiding others to see and appreciate the full measure of who you are. In this clarity, true connection emerges, not through pressure, not through chasing, but through the undeniable force of your authentic, boundary-driven presence. Awakening is a deeply personal journey. No one can force it, no one can orchestrate it, and no one can manufacture it on someone else's timetable. When it comes to avoidant individuals, this truth becomes even more critical. You can demonstrate your value, show your love, and honor your presence, but their realization of your worth is ultimately their responsibility. It is not a reflection of your inadequacy, nor is it a measure of your effort. Awakening is an internal process, a moment of insight that emerges when someone confronts their own patterns, fears, and limitations and chooses to see clearly. This principle is liberating. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of trying to teach, convince, or coerce recognition. Too often, we take on the burden of someone else's awareness, believing that if we act differently, love harder, or prove ourselves more, they will finally see us. But this is an illusion. True recognition cannot be forced because it requires self-reflection, honesty, and courage, the very qualities that the avoidant may struggle to access. When you release the responsibility of awakening from your shoulders, you reclaim your energy, your peace, and your power. Understanding that awakening is their responsibility also reframes distance, absence, and boundaries. When someone steps back or withdraws, it is not a failure on your part. It is an invitation for them to engage in introspection. Your presence, your consistency, and your integrity have already communicated your value. What remains is for them to confront their own avoidance. This is a process that cannot be rushed. The avoidant must navigate their fears, resistances, and habitual defenses on their own. Your role is not to solve this for them, but to remain steadfast in your own worth, demonstrating the power of self-respect, clarity, and authenticity. Awakening as their responsibility also demands that you fully honor yourself. You must embrace the reality that your value is inherent, independent of whether it is recognized. Your worth is not conditional on their acknowledgement or their timing. By standing firmly in this truth, you create a space where recognition can emerge naturally. It becomes clear that any failure to see or appreciate you is a reflection of their patterns, not a deficit in your presence. This perspective transforms frustration into patience, disappointment into understanding, and longing into empowerment. When you accept that awakening is their responsibility, you also set a profound standard for connection. It communicates without words that your energy, love, and presence are not negotiable, and that meaningful engagement requires mutual awareness and accountability. The avoidant cannot demand access to your time, emotion, or care, while disregarding the responsibility to engage with the truth of your value. This shift in energy often acts as a catalyst for reflection. They may feel the void created by distance, the strength communicated through boundaries, or the magnetic power of self-worth, and begin to confront their own avoidance. Ultimately, the awakening of the avoidant is not a favor, a reward, or a reflection of your persistence. It is a choice they must make within themselves. And this choice can only occur in the context of your own unwavering presence and integrity. You cannot manufacture insight, force appreciation, or control the timing. What you can do and what you must do is embody your value fully, love authentically, and honor your energy with clarity and courage. In doing so, you create the conditions for awakening to occur naturally, organically, and powerfully, while preserving your own freedom and dignity. When you internalize this principle, the pressure to fix, chase, or convince evaporates. You become a living testament to the power of self-respect and authenticity. Your presence alone demonstrates the truth of your worth, and the avoidant is left with the responsibility of awakening, or not, on their own journey. Transformation begins with mastery over oneself. It is not about changing others, fixing relationships, or seeking validation from outside sources. True transformation emerges when you take full responsibility for your own life, your emotions, and your energy. In the context of someone who is avoidant, self-mastery becomes not only a pathway to personal growth, but also a powerful catalyst for recognition and change in the dynamics around you. When you are mastered by no one, when your worth is unquestionable, and when your life is lived with intention and purpose, your presence becomes magnetic, undeniable, and transformative. Self-mastery starts with awareness. It requires looking honestly at your thoughts, behaviors, and patterns without judgment. It requires understanding your emotional triggers, your desires, and your fears. When you master your inner world, you no longer allow the avoidance, resistance, or detachment of another to dictate your peace, your self-worth, or your joy. You step into a higher standard of living, one where your energy is sovereign, your boundaries are firm, and your value is radiantly clear. In this state, distance, withdrawal, or avoidance by others cannot diminish your presence. They only illuminate the strength of your self-possession. Transformation through self-mastery also demands discipline. It is not passive or accidental. It is an active commitment to your growth, your clarity, and your integrity. You cultivate habits that support your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. You refuse to compromise your standards to placate someone else's fears or avoidance. You refuse to shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. This disciplined alignment with your highest self sends a clear signal to the avoidant that your life is whole, your worth is non-negotiable, and your energy is sacred. Transformation in this sense is not about manipulation. It is about elevation. Mastery also involves emotional resilience. When you encounter avoidance, distance, or withdrawal, your response is not panic, not desperation, and not pleading. Instead, you respond with calm, clarity, and measured action. You understand that their patterns are theirs to navigate, and you no longer take them personally. By mastering your emotions, you maintain your energy and presence in a way that invites reflection rather than resistance. The avoidant sees strength, stability, and self-possession, and these qualities often inspire recognition and awareness of the value they have been overlooking. Self-mastery extends to purpose. When your life is guided by vision, meaning, and intentional action, your presence becomes magnetic. Avoidants are naturally drawn to clarity and authenticity. When they witness someone living fully, confidently, and in alignment with their purpose, it becomes impossible to ignore the depth and significance of that person's existence. Transformation through self-mastery is not about winning someone over. It is about elevating yourself to such a degree that the recognition of your value becomes inevitable. Ultimately, transformation through self-mastery is liberation. It frees you from the need for external validation, the compulsion to chase, and the weight of someone else's avoidance. It allows you to live with confidence, love with authenticity, and connect with clarity. The avoidant, encountering this level of mastery, is often awakened not through force, but through the undeniable example of your fully realized self. They are given the opportunity to meet you on that level or step aside while you continue to grow, thrive, and shine. When you commit to self-mastery, you transform not just yourself, but the energy around you. You embody a standard that is magnetic, inspiring, and transformative. You demonstrate that your life, your value, and your presence are sacred. In mastering yourself, you create a reality where absence becomes insight, avoidance becomes awareness, and recognition emerges naturally. Not because it is demanded, but because it is inspired by the undeniable power of a person fully aligned with their highest self. Thank you for sharing your time and energy. I wish you strength, clarity, and endless growth on your journey. Goodbye, and may your path be filled with purpose, wisdom, and unwavering self-worth. As we come to the close of this journey together, remember this: your value is not determined by anyone else's recognition. Your presence is not diminished by distance, and your love is most powerful when it flows from authenticity and self-respect. Every boundary you set, every moment of self-mastery, every act of living fully and intentionally is a declaration of your worth. Distance, avoidance, and absence are not threats. They are opportunities for clarity, awakening, and transformation. Stand tall, shine brightly, and let your life be a living testament to the truth that you are whole, radiant, and unshakable. The universe and the people in it will rise to meet the force of your presence. But even if they do not, you remain complete, powerful, and free. Thank you for showing up, for embracing your journey, and for choosing to honor the brilliance within you. Goodbye, and may your path forward be filled with courage, clarity, and the unwavering recognition of your true value.